amendments or tax amendments that have slapped an abnormal and exorbitant $3 rate tariff.
With the new tax policy, a trader is supposed to pay $3 on each kilogram imported, and usually a container carries 28 tons, which is equivalent to 28,000 kilograms. And when you calculate, right now a dollar costs 3,750 Ugandan shillings, which means a trader has to pay 315 million Ugandan shillings to clear their cargo.
Morning, the industry is into shambles because the policymakers earlier before, we thought they were in protection of our local manufacturers. And we had all welcomed that because such policies could at one point help our manufacturers to build the capacity and at some point maybe proper or make some good quality production. In production today, we are now very much disappointed that the new tax policy does not justify only local manufacturers. It does not outline the types and qualities of items that we are not supposed to bring in or bring out. All fabrics that are to be imported starting from 1st July this very year, financial year, are now going to be paying at
That report was regarding textile in Uganda. Textile, people who are dealing in garments and textile are actually not happy with the government. What they say is that, according to details, government decided to put a lot of taxes on imported goods. Remember, at the beginning of the show, with the Ethiopian story that we had, we were discussing about Ethiopia's manufacturing sector being able to raise $500 million US. That's a very huge amount of money, $500 million. So 500 million. So when you look at it in that perspective, Uganda has forever been pushing for the Buy Uganda, Build Uganda policy as a way of promoting local content production and adding value to goods in Uganda that are locally manufactured. So for example, adding value to the agricultural produce, adding value to crops and all that, and then seeing that we expand our exportation numbers and volumes. During the presidential exportation awards, we got to realize that our exportations have grown bigger over the last 2 years, despite the fact that there was the pandemic. But when you look at the exports, they've grown bigger. Now, when you look at it from a perspective where we want to at least see that the small and medium-sized enterprises should be part of this same journey of exportation and being part of the inclusive growth of Uganda's exportation levels, we can be ably sure that if we can take this as part of us, I should say, it's something that we need to understand. But now, government, on the issue of the garments and the textile industry, if I'm to take you back slowly to 2021, the issue was government had to add more on the taxation of imported garments because they got to realize most of the traders, I think all of us have heard of something to do with mivumba, and they are very cheap and durable, surprisingly. Now, when you go downtown Kampala, move into the different arcades, move into different areas, you'll be able to realize that most of the traders in Uganda do import most of their goods from China. We've got a lot of business people who actually get planes and go to China directly to ship in goods and commodities coming in here. Now, when government got to realize, from the textile perspective, they got to realize most of the clothes are coming in from China, and these are second-hand clothes, sometimes third-hand clothes. So government, to eliminate this and to support the textile industry in the country, what they had to do is to add taxes onto these particular imported textile or fabrics. Now, the traders, on the other hand, now we'll give you a two-way thing. The traders, on the other hand, felt the pinch. How did they? You are being taxed heavily, and then after being taxed heavily, you get to realize it's quite unfair. For example, you're paying taxes, rather you're paying these taxes very high. At the border you're paying, then you're going to pay taxes directly once these goods reach in the country. Then again, you're paying rent. So your bills, by facilitating, the more you're facilitating your business, you're paying a lot of charges, extra charges, something that they've actually been coming on board to at least ask government to intervene and check on things. Government, on the other hand, is having a move to enable the production of local content to pick up. I think if we were to look at the Buy Uganda, Build Uganda policy, it is the best way to think about it is we would support this move if we were Ugandans. When you put it into a perspective of a local producer or a local trader who says, I do have clients who want specific goods and commodities. And you know, when you have a market space that has people with different tastes and preferences, you have to meet all their tastes at all costs. Because if you don't, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you need to be flexible. You need to look out for every person's taste, and make sure that you at least fit in the easiest way possible. So when you look at it in this way, the traders feel it is actually becoming worse for them. Now, when you add the taxes into the rent that they're supposed to pay, if you go in town currently, and if you to just take a study, even right now, and you go to most of the famous arcades, even the new arcades, you will find out that there are shops that are empty upwards. Most of the shops are filled up, that is, the first and second floors are all filled up. And to make matters worse, most people are sharing these shops. Someone is selling, maybe someone is running a boutique on the left, then there is someone who's running something else on the right. Because now rent is 1 million or 1.5. And I mean, how much will you be able to sustain your business? For example, you have to pay taxes for textiles and all that, you're running a boutique and all those things. Then you have to pay rent, and at the end of it all, you have your bills at home, personal wants and things like that. So you've got to realize how the situation is not okay for most of the Ugandans. Now that takes us back to the inflation levels in the country. Very hard times for Uganda. In a time when we got to realize that you and I can survive on shillings, not more than $1. I think this is a country whereby you can survive on 3,000 Ugandan shillings. Now that is less than $1. You can buy a meal and it sustains you for a full day. I've seen friends of mine who do not even have time to spend on 3 meals. Someone settles for a meal a day or 2 meals a day. And then you either decide you're going to sleep from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. So you're buying all that time in bed and spending some good time watching data, rather spending your time watching things on social media. And the funny part about my generation is that someone would rather feel hungry but feed the phone. So you have your 10,000, you would think it is better to have data rather than eat. So it is something that is actually becoming a vice, I should say, something that we need to control in regards to that. But speaking of Buy Uganda, Build Uganda policy, where have I brought the argument? From the report that we started with in regards to textile. Now, my big worry was Ethiopia being part of the Horn of Africa and close to the East African Community bloc. I think we as Uganda need to pick something from this. A country like Ethiopia would say we may not be on the same level as it is. But speaking of the fact that they can raise over $500 million from the level of the manufactured goods that they have is enough for people to know how much of an impact it lays to the manufacturing sector. In Uganda today, when you look at manufacturing sectors, we look at the food processing companies that we have companies that are able to produce crisps, biscuits, juices. Those are locally manufacturing companies in the country. Most especially, some of them are actually owned by Ugandans. Then speaking of that same perspective, we've got people who actually dealing in local crafts, arts and crafts. Those are all still under the manufacturing sector. If we can still look for market available. I remember during the Dubai Expo last year, when the president went in there to settle some of the deals, some of the things that were actually discussed was to provide market for locally produced goods in the country. For example, when you look at powdered milk, we had to create market for that. Zambia is now a ready market. When Kenya apparently stopped getting milk, we had to look for other options. Zambia came in ready. We have Morocco in the space as well. Now, when you look at Dubai or the United Arab Emirates in a larger perspective, being able to be one of the key market or available markets for powdered milk, it's exactly that same situation where you get to understand that we can still tap into various markets across the world. Now look at coffee. Adding value to our coffee has apparently been one of the biggest challenges now lately. When Uganda also withdrew from the International Coffee Agreement, there was an issue whereby most of the Ugandans were saying, now what next for the coffee industry? And that is something that worried most people. But looking for market of our local goods should be our top-notch priority. We've been looking at the Democratic Republic of Congo coming into the East African community, thinking and asking ourselves questions like, what will really happen? Because the DRC provides a very huge market space. We've talked about the fact that when you go into supermarkets in the DRC, you go to Goma, go to Lubumbashi, go to the capital, Kinshasa, you'll find out that most of the goods are either exported from Brazil, the United Kingdom, Europe, and not on the East African community countries. Now, my biggest worry was how these people could surprisingly import chicken from Brazil. And yet here in Uganda, we've seen a number of poultry farms in the country, people who are actually selling eggs, people who are actually selling chicken and all those things. And then look at sugar. We've got a lot of companies. I was breaking down for you these companies that manufacture sugar. Here we have Kinyara, Lugazi, we've got Kaliro Sugar. We've got quite a number of those in the country. And when you look at that perspective, we have a market space with the DRC. Now there comes the African Continental Free Trade Area. So when you look at this particular situation, it is a kasavu kanyama for everybody. Liako, no liarieko. So it's a wild platter of situations whereby we can still utilize the space and see how best we can get good use of this. And entirely, when you look at this from a humble view, is if we want to improve our manufacturing to hit various markets in regards to exportation of the manufacturing sector, because we've all realized we have agriculture. When you look at coffee, we already have market for coffee. We're already recognized as one of the key exporters of coffee. Tea, we're among those particular, regardless of the fact that Rwanda has been highlighted as a huge exporter of quality. You know, the quality also matters, quality tea. But when you come to volumes, we are not so bad in terms of tea as well. So when you look at most of these particular crops and plants that we as well transport or that we export out of the country, it is more all giving us a different view or an overview of what we as Ugandans can definitely be part of in regards to the manufacturing sector. So I think in that particular perspective, as we are winding up with the situations and the conversations here, when we want to see our levels of manufacturing grow, it is something that we need to take as an inclusive part or something that we believe should be part of us. It is attitude, it is passion, it is supposed to be support of buying Uganda and building Uganda. I believe the only thing you'll find Ugandans buy very fast that is made from Uganda are edibles. But when it comes to phones, you will not see, we have a phone manufacturing company in Uganda, but you will not see Ugandans opting for that. They will say, solar, cola, things like that. Then later on, you'll get to realize we would choose to go at least for a UK used smartphone. You get all these situations. People get so happy to use different goods that are away from Uganda. Even when someone goes to the supermarket and they find, for example, juice, one which is actually manufactured from Uganda, then someone will entirely say, but Splash is good juice. But I think Splash is made here. No, let's at least lose something like maybe pick and peel. Someone would say, pick and peel. I'll go with pick and peel. I think the other is not actually good. So you see the double standards that we set for Ugandans is definitely something that is actually eating us up from that regard. All right, now, thank you very much for being part of the show today. And you can entirely be part more. If at all you've missed anything, go onto our YouTube channel, Smart24 TV Live. Remember, we are on to the journey to 1,000 subscribers. 1,000, we hit the 1K subscribers. We continue driving business any day, anytime, 24/7. We are the driving force here of your business. Social media, Twitter is Smart24 TV. We have key discussions. Then also, speaking of social media, Facebook is Smart24 TV official for more details regarding business. And tell you what, Instagram is Smart24 TV _ it's Smart24 _TV. Then the website is www.smart24tv.com, smart24.tv rather, as among the key discussions. But today also, as I'm looking through the timeline here to tell you what is going to be happening later on in the day, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development will update the country today on priority areas of the Q1 2022-2023. That is according to the Q1 financial year 2022-2023. So you're going to follow more of these particular updates as they happen here on Smart 24. This is going to be a quarterly press briefing from the Ministry of Finance in regards to the first quarter of the financial year 2022-2023. So they want to update the nation on matters to do with the financial sector in the country and how best we can recover. We are looking at a possible economic recovery in the country and how we can still stick to that goal of 1, commercialization of agriculture, 2, looking at the parish development model, then 3, also looking at mechanization, amongst the other things, and also looking at the drive of digitalization of the economy. Big arguments in there in regards to business, and that is exactly what is going to be happening in today's programming of the day. But later on, we have our normal programming, just a tip of what is coming up later on. After this exact show, we're coming in with Anthony Sebale, bringing you financial markets, understanding the market space in the financial markets, while speaking bonds, stocks, securities, and more. Later on, Fred Makubia will be in here with Uganda Tukole, and then Naomi Mutumba with Scale Up, before Hassan Mwaswanduga brings you Jen Kolela. I'll be back in the night with business today, giving you the latest in regards to business from the bulletin of that perspective. But clearly, thank you very much for being part of Smart Means Business today. I will surely be happy if you do this with me tomorrow. For all of you that started with us from 7 a.m., we're definitely signing out this particular hour with 9 minutes to the top of the hour. But a lot more of business news and information is on your way. Just stick glued on Smart 24. We're on GoTV, channel 394, and on free-to-air decoders. We're coming to you just quickly to drive your business any single day, as it definitely happens. So thank you for being part of Smart Means Business. Till tomorrow, have a blessed day. Good morning. Ciao, adios.